background program, Crypto Michael?
What?
What's your background program? The one that's like does the loop, or like how do you get your backdrop?
Zoom and a green screen.
And then you upload it through Zoom, and then it just plays in the background.
Yeah, Zoom has an option for it now. You just have to not be. You have to like actually download Zoom on your computer, and it has to be like fully updated.
Oh,
Otherwise, they'll turn your stuff off. They won't let you do cool green screens.
what about Zoom on Flux? That kind of seems a little odd.
That'd be very bandwidth intensive.
Yeah.
It would be bandwidth intensive, but
handle it, right?
not necessarily out of the question.
No,
And
not.
There's already applications. Goose was telling me there's a program that they're using that is basically no third party involved. It's almost like
a kind of like Jammy.
Jammy, yeah, it might have been it.
Probably. Jammy is like open source peer to peer. There's like, and it's like in a browser. You could totally run that on Flux.
And you can use video and audio, like through that program.
Yep.
Nice. How's that Minecraft server going?
Fun.
Nice.
Always.
That'd
Haven't played in a little bit, but
hey, guys, we're live.
Let's do it.
It's been live, I think. So hopefully we didn't say.
It looks like it just started.
Okay.
So 82 seconds is what I got.
82 seconds. All right, everybody. Yeah. Well, welcome to the Zell Flux AMA. I'm Dan. We have Crypto Mikkel.
What's up? We got good old Rome down there.
And
Rome. What's going on, Rome? How's things going on? Everybody out there in the chat, welcome. What's up, Stash? He says hi. We are sharing this everywhere currently as we're speaking, which is where our attention is kind of at the same time.
That sounds like a good excuse.
I like that excuse. It sounded good when I said it.
It did. Very professional.
Very, very professional. It sounded professional. So I'm gonna roll with it.
All right, guys. Let's get started. Let's start rolling through these AMA. Yeah. Thank you to everybody that's submitted questions on in the Zell or Flux Discord.
Correct. Which, to get into the Discord, it should be in the description down below, and
you can also ask.
It is.
Yeah. You can ask in YouTube chat as well.
Yeah, it is down there. So, and make sure you're in there, because in order to participate in some stuff that we have going on, you need to be a part of the Discord. So
we got some good merch we're giving away.
What the Flux you talking about?
I'm talking about a Flux hat and what the Flux shirt. It'd be good.
It'd be great. It would be great.
Get some schmediums going.
Yeah. Let's see. So I think I know we started asking for questions yesterday. So I'll start there. And if anybody has any questions in the chat, please feel free. And we can answer anything that we can here. So first thing I can find. See an actual. Determining is it going to be a 1-to-1 ratio whenever the snapshot happens on the 27th of March coming up here? Will it be a 1-to-1 Flux to Zell ratio? That's a good question.
Well, yes, and it will definitely be a 1-to-1, but there are going to be other economic pieces that come into that as well. So essentially, what we're looking to do is with our parallel assets is to provide a snapshot that goes for at least 4 other assets. So your snapshot will cover 1-to-1 on the main chain, but it also is going to cover a fraction of those other parallel assets that we're going to have as well. So you're going to be getting a lot more than, I call it one to many. You're going to be one to many. So, as we release, Flux ETH, Flux Tron, Flux BNB, Flux KDA, those will all be, you'll all get that asset as well from the snapshot.
Okay. So if
And
you're
those
holding,
being-
and mainly KDA, right? Especially when snapshot happens, for sure, you will get, if you're holding KDA, you will get extra Flux or Flux KDA.
Yeah, you'll get
if you're holding, and you can swap to whatever
Right.
coin you were wanting,
Yep.
per the Cadena DEX, which you can integrate into the wallet and be seamless
already
as well.
Yeah, it's already integrated into the wallet fully.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it's native. The day they launch the DEX, you'll be able to use it directly in Zelcore. Nice creature comfort. Never leave your platform.
Yeah, and it's helps out with like a one-stop shop kind of thing.
Yep.
And how about the fees associated with all those Flux assets? Are they gonna have the same low fees like we do for Zell now?
Well, that's going to be determined by the chain that it's on. So obviously your fees on Flux ETH are going to be higher than what they would be, say, on, the KDA model. So, it's preference, whatever you want to mint to. If some people want to trade on Uniswap, they're going to want to mint to Flux ETH. Some people want to use Flux, KDA. They want to be on the KDA DEX. They'll be able to move their primary asset. They'll be able to mint to the new chain, and they'll be able to trade right in that DEX. Boom. So I think what it comes down is personal preference now. Having these parallel assets and being able to move cross-chain to these different platforms, I think is going to be huge for the project.
It's kind of like all the hype too, right? And with the DeFi space kind of going on.
Well, I think this is like, if you really, I'll say it here, but I think this is like DeFi 2.0, because we took the better pieces of DeFi and we said, what works, what doesn't work, what is frothy, what is broken. And we said, all right, DeFi to me isn't one particular platform. It's many particular platforms. And it's a form of technology that, you should be able to span these different chains. And I think that's what Flux does, is it brings all the ability to have all the best of the best. We're going to have the best of ETH. We're going to have the best of KDA, BNB and Tron, and then of course eventually other assets as well.
Right, which will be also helpful for crossing chains into, if there isn't a coin or a DEX that you have access to, it can make it easier for you to swap to get to there. May not be one-stop shop for some things, but it could give you 1 to 2 hops instead of 5, and cut down on the gas fees, because every stop is a nice little fee along the way.
Yeah.
So the less stops, the better.
Yep. And I think people underestimate what this is going to do too, in terms of exchanges adding us. Mm-hmm. Currently, as a proof of work project, they have to integrate that proof of work setup to their exchange, which is time consuming. It's not like adding a token. And now all of a sudden, right, we have access to Flux as a paired parallel asset on pretty much every major exchange. It's a hell of a difference between adding a token and adding a main chain. So I think that it opens us up, especially for some of the big players in the space, because it's a lot less of a heavy lift.
Right on. Crypto Cube, what's going on, man? He has a question. He says, when Pi management deployment available? I'm assuming that's management by MN. But you can deploy a node on a Pi already. But I know the node structure would be more suited to Pi's or a Pi. It would be easier. It'd be easier and cheaper to run, because you start asking for more storage and stuff like that on like a virtual private server. That starts adding up a lot of costs real quick. So
ultimately, the price to current and the way that it is now is not indicative of what it would be once we've reached kind of critical mass before our node halving. I think that the ultimate goal is to put a node in anyone who would like to run a node can have access to that. And I'd love to have it that way. But these nodes are inherently work. You're a decentralized computational operator. I mean, you are a systems admin, decentralized systems admin. Because these are not your click and run nodes. And I don't necessarily know that we'll ever get to the place where it's a click and run. But lowering some of the tiers, and we have 3 tiers today, but that doesn't mean we don't have 5 tiers in 5 years. I think that the focus on adding Raspberry Pis and things like that, I think that's important because it's a lot easier for somebody to do that and tinker around with than it is to stand up bare metal infrastructure server you're going to run a BAMF on or something like that,
Right.
So
And
with
plus,
the
pies are
updated
real low in power consumption.
So with the update in Flux, is there going to be another tier? Was there going to be 4 tiers instead of 3?
No, we're sticking with a 3-tier model, but there is going to be a fairly significant change to the basic. The basic is really going to get worked over, and that's going to become our storage nodes. So if you got basics out there, don't get bummed out. I know you're not getting payments from KDA.
I run a basic.
Hey,
I ain't mad. I'm still getting a really good return. I made almost 300 Zell last month, and like a whole month's worth of running the node, I made about 300 or so. I was getting no less than 3 per day, three block finds per day. Sometimes I would find 4, but never less than 3. So either 3, sometimes 4, and that's good. That's good returns.
Yeah,
just sitting there and just holding them. That's all I'm doing is just holding my own coins. They're just locked up in the node, which is perfectly fine because I can unlock them if I wanted to.
Are you aware of any increase in the amount of nodes over the last few quarters of last year? Has there been a steady increase at all in those nodes? I think we're at 770, 780 right now.
Yeah, we've been as high as 1,000, but the reason I think you see the lower nodes is because there was a lot more basics who have consolidated to the upper tiers so that they could get the KDA payout. I think
I'm on my way there.
I would say the majority of the individuals that held several basics consolidated them because at one particular point in time the basics were more profitable, and then all of a sudden now we have these other 2 nodes structures that are getting secondary payments, which all of a sudden I would go up and say we're the most profitable node structure in all of crypto. If you go out and look at it, dollar for dollar, I think there are others that maybe are close, let's say a Dash node or something of that nature. But damn, once we really turn on the spigots and start to put additional projects on the platform, you can have 4, 5, 6 things running on, your powerhouse, which is your Stratus node, which is the BAMF, the old BAMF, and you can be perpetually cycling to whatever project you believe is producing. So, it gives you the opportunity to look at almost like mining when you're spec mining and you're looking at new coins to mine. You will actually be participating with these projects and looking at, well, which project do I want to give my computational power to, and which project is going to reward me in their asset or be rewarded in Flux. So yeah, I think that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it. DD says, can the parallel asset be traded back to Flux?
Yes. Yeah.
Any asset that you choose to go to Flux ETH, Flux Tron, Flux BNB, etc. You can go back to just Flux, or go to just ETH, or go to just KDA. That's the beauty of it.
We haven't released the actual distribution numbers, but think of it this way. I think it's going to look a little like this. imagine having $1 and now you have $2. $1 represents a BAMF, and now you have 2 BAMFs. But those BAMFs, that second BAMF, is spread out in about 4 different chains. So you're still not diluting, although there's additional assets in the system, so the number goes up. You're not diluting. You still have the exact amount, but it's spread between these different chains. So if you decide that you don't really want to be in Flux BNB, and you go onto the Binance Dex when we're at it, and you say, I'm going to sell it and I'm going to go back over to Fusion, or you just go and you mint it straight to inside of Zelcore into Fusion, and Fusion just brings you back over to the main chain. And then so in theory, I now have these parallel assets. I could consolidate all those back onto the main chain, stand up another node.
So there's really a good possibility to grow if you stay with it. And as far as just keeping your coins and then, like you said, cycling them to your different projects, there's really room to expand if you really stick with it. What do you think?
Yep, 100%.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think there's tons of because people ask, well, in the economic model, they're like, well, wouldn't if you have Flux, the main chain that's on KuCoin, and then you have Flux ETH that is on Uniswap, what if this price goes higher than this? Well, then that's good. That's called arbitrage. What you do is you look for these different opportunities where you can capitalize on that. And it should, in theory, equalize the price across the platforms. But again, if there is a sudden demand that, all of a sudden, Uniswap takes off again, everybody wants to trade everything, Flux is listed there, they can open up Zelcore, go to Fusion, and immediately mint to the Flux ETH chain and go trade. So, it's going to be a pretty seamless process to move back and forth between these different chains.
And that's going to be all available within Zelcore, right?
Yeah.
As far as Cadena Swap and Zelcore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what makes this very unique for us, is because we have the Zelcore team, the Zelcore opportunity. We can have Fusion and a way for you to go from one utility asset to another utility asset. So I've always said it, the holy grail of blockchain is interchain operability. This is it, man. You literally can go to whatever chain you want. If we decide to mint 50 chains, we can continue to keep doing it. And what that does is it gives people the opportunity to participate in the Flux ecosystem, but also leave and go and participate on other ecosystems.
I know. Can you do me a favor? Can you make me a moderator? That way I can post the YouTube link in the chat, because it won't let me. It yelled at me.
Who yelled at you?
YouTube yelled at me.
It
says, don't you dare post a link. You're not a moderator. Just right click my name. And it should say, or there should be like 3 little dots. And you click them and it'll say make moderator.
There you go.
Cool.
So as we're talking about all these changes, Dan, maybe we could talk about a little bit how it used to be 75-25 for the distribution. What about the mining aspect of all of this? Are we going to have a different distribution cycle?
Yeah, we are going to have a different distribution cycle, but we're allowing, what we're going to do is allow the miners to participate in the overall quality of the project, quality of the chain. So essentially what we're going to do is the reward goes to 50-50. However, miners will now be eligible for distributions as well. They have to meet the criteria. So in other words, they have to keep their rig up and running. They have to have an effective amount of uptime. They can't flip from chain to chain. They have to stay on our project. And if they do that, they're going to be rewarded with a distribution of Flux that will really help in many different ways. And we can do this on different projects as well. So the miners essentially are going to get a percentage of that distribution as well. We're taking care of our miners because the proof of work side of the house is critical. and I don't want them to feel like we're taking anything away from them. So we're bringing them into the plan and making sure that they're taken care of just like everyone else.
And that's going to be proportionate to your uptime, not necessarily your hash rate.
Mm-hmm. It could be your uptime. It could be your hash rate. It could be a myriad of things, because essentially we can set the criteria and then we can make sure that you're, working with the pool ops, making sure that you're on a pool, making sure your uptime is correct, and then, allowing them to do what pool ops do, and that's distribute rewards accordingly.
Very nice.
Let's see. Master Cash says, when are we going to get a Dibby NFT rare collection token?
I don't know, man.
Maybe soon on we can put it on the Zell Core wallet whenever all that gets settled out. We'll just slap it in there.
Yeah, somebody's doing that shit just so I have to buy it. So whoever's doing it, I know.
Malik, what's going on, buddy? He says, can we fix the Grafanda dashboard, which is the Zell node dashboard or Flux node dashboard now, to reflect the KDA rewards as well? Price data is a little broken.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you.
It'll all get fixed once the snapshot happens.
It actually is. Sure. That is actually not getting fixed, and I'll tell you why.
Really?
What I'm about to tell you, nobody's heard yet, is the fact that we're working on building that on Flux itself. So that entire kind of feel of that dashboard, it's not going to look necessarily like the Grafana. And by the way, that's not a bad thing, because I think that thing is ugly, and I've always said that. It's cool looking, but it's not exactly, from a user interface standpoint, it's not exactly the prettiest thing in the world. So we're going to launch it on Flux, and it's going to be you'll have the ability to help participate in that as well. And I don't know if you've seen our simple block explorer, but essentially it's going to be somewhat similar to that.
Is that going to be viewable in Zellcore? Just some of our apps, like Zell apps, and
yep,
those such things.
Yep, that's a plan. So I think what it does is, if you want to really look at what we've done with the node side of the house in Zellcore, monitoring and maintaining your nodes and things, imagine that, but with an aggregated data of the network. You can see how many, what the hard drive is, what the processing power is, so on and so forth.
So can you give us a quick explanation between Zellcore and Flux? Because they've been kind of meshed in this kind of one idea for a very long time, but I think we're really trying to put them both in their separate corners. Is there a way that you can describe how they're kind of going to be from now on?
Well, Zellcore always has been, since its creation, since its inception, has been a private project. And essentially, we use the Zellcore team that are the developing on the Flux platform as well. And ultimately, we want to have that Flux be that backbone for essentially for Zellcore. One of them is a privately held company. So that's Zellcore Technologies. And then we have one that is the community-based project, which is open source and across the board and so on, and that's Flux.
Nice.
And before we get too further, I do want to mention that in the chat, guys, there is a link to the previous video, which is actually the community meeting, which announced a lot of this. A lot of questions can be answered by watching that video. But go in there, and I want you to post a question. It could be even your question here. Just post a question in the comment section. That way I can use a comment picker. That way you can win some Zell, or maybe a What the Flux t-shirt. But I got to use comment picker. Please do not post addresses in there, because YouTube will flag your comment and it'll never get shown. So if you want to win, don't post your address.
So I see there's a question in the AMA. It says any plans to integrate Lightning Network. Zelcore and Lightning Network could be game changers if combined, and that was posted by Green Friendly. Thank you, Green Friendly. We have a very unique and awesome situation that we're in right now, and that is that we have figured out that we can run damn near anything on the Flux platform and integrate it to Zelcore. So there are a lot of quality projects out there that we have started to align ourselves with and start to work with. And do I ever see Lightning Network being there? I think so. I think there could be something down the road, and I'm not saying quarter 4 of this year or maybe quarter 2 of next year, but it's not beyond the realm of possibilities. And I do like payment channels. I do think the Lightning Network is a nice nice solid project. But yeah, we have to prioritize what is going to scale our network, and and how we do that.
Nice.
So there's been this popular narrative of, there's been this comparative bubble to the 97 internet. And then how Bitcoin itself and this whole ecosystem is at a very young age as far as technology and development. Kind of where do you see Zell in maybe a 3-year or 5-year span? Do you have any vision on kind of the direction that we're going and the possibilities that we can get on there? I know you said anything can be built on Flux, but do we want to be just kind of where it's all self-reliant on itself? Flux is running by itself?
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate goal for the project is to get the XDAO up and running and be a decentralized autonomous network. I mean, and let me explain, people say, well, why would an autonomous network be, what we want to go here? I think what it comes down to is we know this from having a community and their involvement, that I think you almost crowdsource the knowledge for the project. So it isn't 1 or 2 entities that are running the project. It's actually crowdsourced by everybody that runs the infrastructure. This is a unique project because we've never had a situation where the infrastructure that runs whatever it is that you want to place on this network is governed by the people. Essentially, if a big company wants to stand something up, they go out and they purchase a shit ton of VPSs and maybe some physical infrastructure, and they stand up their network. But we've seen these situations like, and I'll just use it for instance, but the Parler thing, the deplatforming of Parler. Now, granted, they broke rules and they were on a for-profit provider. But if there was a decentralized provider out there, and they met the criteria to run on the network, why wouldn't they? So I think you're going to see us continue to mature. And I've said this before, we don't necessarily want to be the gold miners. We want to be the folks that are selling the shovels, the pickaxes. We want to help other projects develop and integrate into our platform. We work with their chain. And I mean, honestly, the sky's the limits, because there's a lot of people in the space that say they can do this shit, and none of them can back it up. We can scale, we can grow. We have everything in place that this could be absolutely explosive in terms of growth. And
exciting times.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited. I think we're ready for this, but I think a lot of times people need to think outside the crypto space, because they think, oh, well, how do we develop the next iteration of whatever Flux looks like, so we can support this chain or that chain. Well, what happens when you have the combination of a decentralized computational network and a platform that will allow you to tokenize anything? Well, you have the ability for tokenization of houses, automobiles, cars, electronic medical records, you name it. You can now tokenize those assets. You can run the infrastructure on a decentralized network, and you can access it all in Zelcore. So it's kind of this weird, amazing symbiotic thing that came together. I would like to say that we planned it that way from the outset, but it's matured. We've learned, okay, how can we capitalize on this technology as we build it? And we are very early, and people ask me this, and you just asked about the .com bubble. Now I'm old, but I'm not that old. I missed the .com. I came in at the end of it, but the difference between the .com bubble and what we're doing in technology today, this boon that's coming, is this was new technology, but the frothiness of it all is what crashed. What came out of that? Apple, Google, IBM, you name it, big players in the space that gobbled up these smaller companies. So I don't think it's the same thing here. I think we're seeing, we're gonna be projecting outward, and I think you'll see there could be 5 or 6 versions or iterations or other companies that are going to be doing what we do, and they could all be working together, which is mind blowing when you think about it, because competition no longer becomes competition; it becomes opportunity. So,
which is a huge opportunity for growth in many directions.
For sure.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I'm excited because you'll be able to run an actual website and host your own website, and it'd be on a decentralized network where no one can just take it down for whatsoever. As far as probably even running on DCA, we're looking and running a Rocket Chat server. And so I was like, I'm trying to think about how we're gonna do that. I don't want to go get a VPS to do that. And I was like, I could probably run that on Flux, run a Rocket Chat server. So a decentralized server on a decentralized platform. That sounds like a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
And you couldn't be stopped at that point. The only thing that could stop it would be the person running it.
Yep.
So
yeah, I think it's a very unique opportunity, and we're right in the beginning of it. I would say, I always tell my friends, if we were going to a baseball game, we wouldn't even be to the parking lot yet. I think it's that early on. And if you don't believe me, sit down and go through CoinMarketCap, look at the top 200 projects, look at the commits to their GitHubs, look at the technology that they're developing, look what they've actually put forward. And I think you'd be very shocked. I think there's an overinflation of people that believe that their projects are actually creating viable technology, and they're just not. You know what I mean? It's just, you have a bag of it and you're tribalistic to that, but yeah, you haven't had a commit since, first month of 2020, you've got a problem. I saw one today that was 2019, 2018 was their last commit, and they still have a fairly large community. So I don't know.
So with that being said, I believe there was a question from Rain Man. Do you have any outlooks on marketing then? How are we going to make sure Flux is on the center stage? And then how are we going to promote ourselves in a positive fashion?
Well, we released the marketing and PR plan yesterday, so I highly recommend everybody take a look at that. We will have one of those quick play explainer videos coming out here within the next day or two that kind of goes through the marketing and PR. But really, ultimately, what we're going to start doing is focusing on SEO optimization. Now that the rebrand brings a lot of opportunity. It brings a clean slate for us to really start to push the brand. We didn't even know what the brand was for a long time. We didn't know how these things worked symbiotically. We didn't know, necessarily how we were going to approach the masses and explain something like this. We have to hone our explanation. So, we're a decentralized cloud provider. That's what we do. We provide decentralized computational network, right? And the easy way to explain that to somebody is they say, do you know what Amazon Web Services is? Yes. Well, that's what we do, but it's decentralized. Nobody controls it. So Amazon owns their servers. They own their infrastructure. The cloud is real. It's a place. It's a thing. You can feel it and touch it. It's not some nebulous, out there in the middle of nowhere. Our data lake and what we're going to be running on our side, it looks completely different than what they're doing. So, we have to hone that pitch, and obviously develop resources around the marketing and PR aspect of it. It is very difficult to market in a crypto market. And the analogy I use is, imagine if you had 20 people crammed in a room and they were all screaming at the top of their lungs how awesome their project was. Nobody's being heard. You know what I mean? If you have a lot of money and a marketing and PR staff of 4 or 5 people that are just sitting there all day long, looking at aggregated information that's coming in from these different platforms, you're still struggling. So some of the big players, they have their own marketing and PR teams, and that ultimately is what we're going to end up with. We'll have a full-time marketing and PR director, and then we have individuals underneath that are going to, they're going to pump out the content material. One of the other things we're doing, which we didn't talk about in the marketing and PR program, is we're looking at a lot of data analytics. So aggregated data from a lot of different social streams to start capitalizing on engagements and actually reaching out and talking to people that are talking about us. So, that I'll never forget this. And this is a shout out to Zcash, to Zuku. When I was really coming into, crypto, I've been in it for a while, but I decided I wanted to mine Zcash. And, I was on Twitter and I was tweeting around and I was asking questions about Zcash. And all of a sudden in my inbox, I look down and there's Zuku. And he's like,
he's a good guy.
We're sitting there talking about the platform. And I'm like, I laid my phone down and I felt like, I was like, if you tried to do something that in the legacy world, they laugh at you. Yeah, I've got the CEO of the company that's helping me. It's amazing when you see the people that are even in our community. If I come into Discord and I help somebody, you got a CSO that's standing there helping you do this. If Parker's in there and he's helping, he's a CEO. I mean, it's interesting.
And I think that is just a reinforcement of just kind of how much Zelcore and Flux really cares about is not only the community, but just how engaged we are to try to make this all work, because this is something very unique, and that's not, it's not every day that something like this comes across the table. So I think we have a very positive community.
Well, it definitely takes. The community is essential. I mean, having them involved in believing in the project. I mean, we built straight through the bear market, and there's not a lot of projects out there. And a matter of fact, we have people on our team that were part of other projects that have defunct, that built like we built through. I mean, I took a screenshot the other day of Tadeush's GitHub because it looked like a damn Christmas tree.
Trunk is on fire.
I mean, he's insane. And we're
shout out to Falter too. They have all of our devs have been working.
Beast. Yeah, we got a new one. X came on. Yeah, we actually added another full-time developer to Zelcore. So the ability to crank out this tech and keep it supported is there, and having the community involved in that direction and part of that XDAO that we're coming out with, I think that's huge.
And then can you go, since you just mentioned the XDAO, do you mind explaining and kind of touching up on that? How would that work?
So the way the XDAO works is essentially it puts in the hands of the community the ability, if you run a node or you meet the criteria for voting. We've kicked around the idea if if you're staking for a service, maybe you get a vote, and then each each node structure gets a particular amount of votes, and they're going to start receiving proposals from businesses that want to run on our infrastructure, and they'll have the ability to review those proposals just like like a normal business, and vote on which one is going to make sense for them. So I see it being the one of the very first steps in that autonomous organization structure that we talked about. Mm-hmm. And we'll have a brand new website. It's going to be called runonflux.io, and it's basically going to talk people through how you submit your proposal, what estimated costs are, and once it's submitted, it goes to our node ops for review, and if it's approved, we will globally launch the application, and they'll pay in Flux and continue to keep running it. So here, I'll give you an example, because you're probably saying, well, what the hell is a proposal? Okay, well, a proposal would be like this. I'm Dan, and I have a company, and I want to run a decentralized chat app, okay? And I've built it, I Dockerized it, it's ready to go, it's ready to be deployed. I can either deploy it on a conventional, AWS or VPS provider, or I can submit a proposal to the Flux community to run my new decentralized chat app on their platform. So there'll be almost like a sheet that you fill in, basically saying, who you are, what you're doing, and one of those things is, what is the return for the individuals who are providing the computational resources? So say I have a token or I have a coin that's been created from that project. Well, I'll pay you X amount for a year and we'll lock it up. Then the node ops sit down and they look at what has been submitted and they say, well, this decentralized chat app is going to pay me, an estimated 5,000 tokens in the next, I can do, maybe that's the one I want to do. And I vote for it. And it's, we have to have a particular threshold for the vote to go through. And once it's through, then we deploy it on the infrastructure, and the individuals who want to participate with that particular project, they'll be able to participate. And the ones that want to do something else, they can do something else.
Nice.
Amazing.
And DD, I see your question, which in the live chat, but you also commented this question on the Flux community meeting video. In fact, he is one of the only people that has commented over there prior to anybody else commenting that I can see. So DD, I'm just going to make sure you go ahead and get something awesome, because you've asked multiple questions, very good questions. Message me in the Discord, and we're going to give you the What the Flux t-shirt, because you're asking some pretty good questions, but you're
lucky
doing
That's awesome.
Doing it.
Well done, man. Well done.
Your awesome question that you have is to help me understand this. Hypothetically speaking, if everyone trades their parallel assets back to Flux, back to the Flux coin, can we say that the total Flux supply will go from 210 million to 200 or 300x, whatever? Like, will it increase the cap of the coin? So where's the total number?
I'm gonna tell you right now, the cap of the coin is going up, but it's relative. So the way that I kind of think about this is, you have $1, okay, and you break that dollar and you have 4 quarters. It's essentially going to be somewhat similar to that. You're going to have that broken up in, let's say, tenths on those parallel chains. So when they come back across into the main chain, we have to have a swap that's going to be locked. So to ensure that if every single person on the parallel chain came back into the main chain, we have to have enough of that main chain to cover those parallel assets. As soon as you leave the main chain and move to the parallel chains, that amount of flux is then deducted and it starts to spread across. So at any given time, you'll see probably more people in, obviously there's going to be more people in the actual Flux platform because they're going to be running nodes. And those individuals probably aren't going to run off and they're going to want to get more Flux. They're not going to want to necessarily go out and trade or do whatever. So
Flux will remain at the 121 million, but it has the ability to expand into these other assets without having too much issues.
Not releasing any numbers yet, but it is going. The total supply is going to go up, but it's going to look. You're not diluting the individuals. So if we doubled it, think of it this way: if we doubled it, right? If we said we doubled the supply, but we're giving anyone who has the asset 2, right? So now I had 1 BAMF and you gave me another 100,000. Now I have 2 BAMFs, but the supply went up, the numbers stay the same. So essentially we can do that 4 or 5 or 6 times and continue to have a hot, it's going to go up in the maximum supply, but it's still the same amount that would be in circulation in nodes and locked up. It's going to give people the opportunity to put up more infrastructure. Like someone like me, I have a few nodes, and I'm going to take all my parallel assets. I'm going to bring them back over. I'm going to stand up more nodes. You know what I mean? Because it's like, yeah, that's all cool, and people like DeFi and they can do their thing, but I want to get it back over here where I can, have 5 more nodes or whatever the number is, and be able to continue to earn rewards on those nodes.
So you would still have this potential for a run up in price because people will still want those nodes because of their value and what they can produce.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing is supply is going to be locked, because essentially anything that we mint will be held into a like a swap feature that's not in circulation. So a very large piece of this project is locked up and will always be locked up because they're providing infrastructure for the project. So, right. I mean, I think, individuals that are in the space right now, unless they got real super lucky within the past 3 months and found the project, they're long-term investors. So they're gonna know, if I can run 2 BAMFs now, and now the price is $1, okay, it makes sense for me to have those 2 BAMFs. I think you continue to see those people lock up.
Long-term hodler.
David Van Lewin, he says, what does decentralized cloud mean? And we'll take a couple more questions here because we're rolling up on almost about an hour. So we'll take a couple more questions here, guys. We don't want to stretch this one out too long.
So I think to understand a decentralized cloud, I think you have to understand what a centralized cloud is, like AWS. Their cloud services are real things. They're actually, shipping containers, or Microsoft has the same thing for their side of the process. And they're designed to be proportionally distributed in zones. And your data is never really at one particular location, but fragments of your data are at all these different locations. And ultimately, if you lose one of these sites, your data would still be redundant and in those other places, but still centrally controlled. So if they wanted to censor you, if they wanted to come in and, look at your data or whatever, they could do that. A decentralized model actually takes the responsibility of maintaining that node and that infrastructure and then sends it into the community. So individuals can run this infrastructure in their basement. They can do it on a VPS. They can do it on an old server, soon to be a Raspberry Pi. They can run this infrastructure anywhere. Mm-hmm. And it becomes very difficult to begin to censor that information. And the nice thing about it is because it's a community and they're providing input to the governance model, they're determining what goes on the network. And that's a little bit different. Like if you stood a network up and anybody could throw anything up, it would be total anarchy. What we're doing is we're doing almost like a it takes a village to raise. We want people to participate and give their guidance and input, and then ultimately their financial dedication, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be voting on this. And the individuals that hold these nodes, and they're incentivized by multiple chains and multiple projects, will start to almost make business models out of this, because this will be something that they can participate in and almost be like a passive business partner. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I got off on a tangent there, but
it explains it very well, though.
The decentralized cloud. If you would have asked me about it 8 months ago, it would be very hard to explain it to somebody. All you have to do is say, when Twitter kicked Trump off of online, whether you love Trump or you hate Trump, they deplatformed the man. They deplatformed lots of people. And an application that would be running in a decentralized cloud, that couldn't happen. It would be the community ultimately that makes a decision whether or not that platform would be taken down. And it would have to meet the criteria on why it would be taken down. So another example is what happened with Parler. The politically aside, because it can go both ways. We don't want to deplatform anyone. Libertarian Dan, I don't want to see anyone deplatformed. If you're saying things, and if you're building with code in tech that is not censorable, then it should be there. So that's a little bit difference between a regular network cloud infrastructure and a decentralized one.
Correct. That should work says, what is the service provided? I think a lot of times altcoins forget about that. It's kind of a very open-ended question there. I mean, depends on what you're talking about. There is staking for a service. So you would stake for the Zelcore Plus, which inside the wallet, which would unlock more addresses for you, more features for the wallet. And that would come at you basically just of you holding 5,000 Zel Flux. That way you would unlock that. So that's what you're talking about. That would be a service that this altcoin in particular provides. That answers your question. I don't know.
Let's do one more.
It's like the Thor project, but 100% better in other aspects. Yeah.
I don't know what Thor is. I'll have to check it out. But yeah,
it's DeFi.
Gotcha.
Just some good old DeFi, which I'm just now starting to learn all of that, because that's what everybody is like wants to know about DeFi. Yeah.
97% of DeFi is horseshit. Just so you're aware.
I completely agree.
I'm just telling you the way. I mean,
the other part of it is high gas fees.
Yeah, the other part is
no. The other
100% of DeFi.
Yeah. The other percent of it is unbelievably earth-shattering technology that will propel these decentralized models into the point where I believe your centralized exchanges never go away. It's kind of like fiat currency. It never goes away. Some people prefer an institution to curate and manage their assets. And some people like me don't trust anybody. So, it is what it is.
Right on. So David says, how about the new transparency laws for hospitals to disclose charges, and how DeFi could integrate such thing?
Well, DeFi is it's a great use case if you take the decentralized finance out of it and you talk about maybe a DeFi health model. I don't know what we would call that. DeHi. No, I don't know. I don't know. D-hop. But essentially, you can take that to any different platform, and I'll tell you right now, one of the real big reasons why Zelcore was built and exists, and why Flux was built and exists is because I want to I at some point want to tackle electronic medical records. I think you should be able to possess your own information, your own medical records. And I think that we have had these laborious, onerous bullshit laws put in place where we can't effectively manage our own health data. And that's horseshit. And
That's
I think
really interesting to think about, especially in 2021, where you can't access those or you're not allowed to access those. I mean, that is part of who you are. Those are like your fingerprints in a
yes.
sense, and you don't have access to those unless you go to those entities or facilities. And
Even
I think,
then,
just like you said, yeah, even then you would have to have somebody to. You can't leave with them. You know, you can't. It's very weird how that's all structured. It's almost just kind of keeping people, you know, on a tight leash, you could say, just to make sure.
just unaware. Makes them
just unaware. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, unaware.
Well, you know, I became very aware about 9 years ago because I have a chronic illness, and I ended up going to about 16 different doctors, and the absolute terror of moving from one doctor to the other doctor while you were sick and trying to keep all of your x-rays and your testing results and everything together was absolutely impossible. Impossible to the point where anyone who was sick and had to traverse that space could not do it. Now, luckily, I figured out what was wrong with me, and I eventually got treated. But I still have a chronic illness the rest of my life, and I would like to have that data right on my cell phone, right? Like Zelcore, imagine logging into Zelcore, but it being all of your electronic medical records from all of, your whole life that you can provide to, you go into a hospital and they scan a simple QR code and they have access to a database, a secure database that rides on the Flux network. And now they have all of your images, all of your test results, all of your doctor's appointments, everything, if you've done it correctly, all of your medications and so on and so forth. Boom, right there it is. So,
and the most important thing about all of that is the security aspect as well. So, that's just meant for you. And we want to have a very good Zelcore where that security is integrated and you're all set to go, where you're not going to have these data leaks or any of that other nonsense that happens nowadays.
Yeah, we wrote a pretty in-depth white paper about this for the proof of concept, which is called Paradigm. But for Paradigm to exist, we needed Flux, and Flux is just about there to where we want to start looking at that again. So, we're always doing these ultimate side projects too that are going to continue to add value to the project. There's a question that popped up that if you guys got time, I'll take a couple more. Christian Salas said, "Why exactly are the privacy addresses being taken away? I personally don't care about my address not being private, but just was wondering." Basically, because we don't need it. It wasn't used. It wasn't utilized. We were using it for shielding rewards from our node structure. But hey, there's privacy platforms out there, the Zcaches of the world, Moneros of the world. Well, not necessarily Monero, but definitely Zcash, that do privacy as transactions very well. But we're not necessarily a payment model. We're more of a utility based asset. So, there was no sense for us to take the regulatory risk of being a privacy asset and having the government come down and say, "Oh, we don't like, privacy." And yeah, it might win in the end, but there's going to be tons of lawsuits and tons of carnage that comes between here and there. So, what would we do immediately if that came? We would drop the private addresses, which is exactly what we've done now. We want to be ahead of it. So we're thinking proactively rather than reactively.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you're trying to build now all of this prior to that, that battle could take years, and you're trying to build a product now, not years later. So
Yeah, we're not.
Easy
We're
to
not.
convert to something that's not being utilized.
When we've forked Zcash for their code base and started developing, we don't even we have inherent pieces of the Zcash code base on Flux, but our code doesn't even look anything like theirs anymore. We've went a completely different way.
Right.
So we're gonna let that battle get fought by the people that's their bread and butter, and not by us that are
Yeah.
We got better plans
okay.
and bigger plans to do.
Yeah.
Gotta build
I kind
more.
of figured it was something like that. Thank you for answering that question. You're welcome, buddy. Goose says, when moon, such moon you don't need to know. Now is moon.
Now moon.
Moon is now. Moon is always. Let's see all your health records. Yes, Goose. That would be amazing. Shink agrees, having like he's been talking about a healthcare coin. Shink's from the DCA community and he talks about this quite often. So this is something right up his alley.
Yep.
But yeah.
So do you have any possible projects that you can talk about? I know that we're always trying to be a little bit, make sure all the paperwork's done before we release this kind of information. But do you have anything behind the curtains that Zelcore or Flux has been working on that you're kind of excited about?
I'm very excited about multiple projects. I can give you a little bit about one of the ones that we're working with that's getting ready to launch on Flux here before too long, and probably could be our first candidate for the new governance model to be elected onto the chain. And that's Dropaloo. So Dropaloo is a social platform that concentrates specifically on areas. So if you're at a place, you can leave a drop, which essentially can be picked up by other individuals. So it's more of a social engagement piece instead of being like Facebook, where it's this big conglomerate of everybody who's involved. It's really involved the people in your community. So it's involved with maybe even the people in your house. Hell, I don't know. I might need to leave a Dropaloo upstairs for my daughter, so she takes out the dishes or out of the dishwasher. So I'm very excited about that project. We have a couple other, I'm going to say, bigger projects that are courting us in terms of we have a resource that they need, and that is the computational network, and they need to grow theirs as well. So I think there could be some really good partnerships coming out of that within the next, let's say, 3 weeks.
Oh, that's pretty soon.
It's pretty tasty news, guys. Y'all heard that.
Birdman hand rub. I'm getting excited.
Yeah. Well, and I'm pretty excited about Dibby Fetch as well. And we're continuing to kind of develop that and flesh that out. But that actually was the very first application that ever was ran completely off of Flux, and it really gave you a truly decentralized Oracle. Oracles now are maintained on a centralized network, and they say they're decentralized, but they're really not. Fetch was the very first decentralized Oracle that aggregated market data back to a decentralized model. So pretty excited about that. And there's a lot of stuff we're doing. The rebrand has brought lots of opportunity for the project. I couldn't be more happy with where we're at right now. It's just, we're really in a good spot. The KDA DEX is going to launch. We're going to be on that asset. It's going to be native inside of Zelcore. That's huge. That is huge. That's a native DEX directly in Zelcore. You really don't need anything else.
One-stop shop.
One-stop shop. The improvement of the node structure and the increase of the computational requirements on that. It's a gas, grass, or ass. Nobody rides for free. You know what I mean? You're going to be providing something to the network, and that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. So, it would be a great time to get Flux then and get Zell, right?
Yep, I believe so.
Time is now.
Yeah.
Dee says the mining algorithm going to change or remain the same. It'll remain the same. I know that one for sure. Nothing will change algorithm-wise.
Algo stays the same.
Yeah, we're not forking the algorithm or anything like that.
And we have
change
such a
algos,
unique
so.
algorithm, and we're ASIC free now, so I think we're great where we are from the proof of work side as well.
Yeah.
That should work. Said there's so many serious unserious actors in the crypto space, and I couldn't agree more. We look at it a little bit different out of our lens because we've never believed that Flux was anything more than a technology project that utilized the blockchain. Right. So we're not out there shilling our project like some of these other projects are, saying they can do things that they can't do. Everything we say we are going to do, we're going to do it because we know we can do it. So, and I think that's important.
I agree.
Oh, geez, that's a lot of them.
Oh, Jesus.
Wow.
I'm in a lot of trouble.
Well, there you go. That's the SEC right there. So
yeah,
that's a perfect time to
coming to shut me down, man.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I really appreciate you having me on tonight, and this is a blast. We'll do another AMA here in a couple weeks. We're gonna be releasing the economic model coming up, and I think an AMA like this would be a great place to continue to keep developing that conversation. So, let's plan on that. And if we missed your question, I apologize. Drop it in
Post
AMA.
in the comment.
Yeah, post it in the comments. Drop it in your AMA, the AMA on Discord, and we'll make sure we'll get back to you right away.
Yeah, because as soon as this video is done, it'll open up comment section down below, and you'll be able to put a comment down there. So go for it. Ask away.
Awesome.
I appreciate all of you guys for coming out.
I appreciate you guys. Yeah, thank you guys. Really do appreciate it.
Yep, and thank you to our community members that tuned in, and then go ahead and plan for next time.